Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the garage. It's a freaking disaster in here. I've been so busy, I haven't even had time to clean. I've been working in the driveway. Anyways, Nissan Rogue. My last video on the Nissan Rogue was fixing the clock spring, diagnosing the crazy traction control issue. Little quick backstory on the Rogue. She just bought this at auction, drove it over here with the traction lights and check engine lights, not all the lights in the dash were on. She had to push the traction off button to be able to even drive the car here. Horrible noises in the front end. So, long story short, I did both front CV axles, both front control arms, and then I fixed the clock spring. And that got rid of all the warning lights and all that stuff. And she's been driving it ever since. So the car started to pick up this weird issue with she'd hit the throttle and the car wouldn't move. There would be no response from the gas pedal. You push your foot down and nothing would happen. So I drove it and I noticed some of the typical CVT, high mileage CVT stuff where sometimes you're getting up in the RPM range and it's like the belt sticks and you have to let off for a second and then the RPM will come down a little bit and then you're fine and then you can get up to speed and everything's good. So I noticed that stuff and I told her that the transmission, that's symptoms of the transmission going out, and we almost put a transmission in it. We still may end up having to at some point here soon. We're hoping not, but anyways, so I fix all the other stuff and it starts doing this problem where you push throttle and there's no response. I drive it and the only thing that I see is those typical CVT problems. We were going to put a transmission in it. And then finally one day I was driving it and it did it real quick for about 5-10 seconds. I went to take off and go around the corner from a light, push the throttle, and there was nothing. Pump the gas. It's like about the time you're going, what the heck's going on? The car snaps out of it. I got it to do it twice, and it was so fast. Even the second time, I had the scan tool with me. It happened so quick, I wasn't able to pick anything up, and I wasn't able to do it. And both times it did it when I was let my foot off a brake and went to make a right-hand corner. So anyway, I started talking to people that I know, round and round. I didn't know what to do with it. She took it over to Nissan to have Nissan do a diagnostic on it. And Nissan says it needs rear brakes, cabin air filter, engine air filter, and they wanted to do a $1,200 plus $1,300 cooler assembly for the transmission, saying that they had some symptoms written down, which is the symptoms when the transmission overheats in the car. What it does is it starts to go into a hot mode and it starts to limit your vehicle speed and it'll slow you down. It'll force you to slow down. Which I don't think she had ever even experienced it doing that prior to taking it to Nissan. So we got out of there and I happened to talk to a guy who said that some of the Nissans had problems with the brake light switches. The brake light switch would leave the brake lights on momentarily, or sometimes they'd stay on. As it got worse, they would just stay on. And being that it's a electronic throttle body, the car thinks you're pushing both gas and the brake at the same time, and it won't let it accelerate. So I said, hey, that switch is like $30. I'll put it in for you real quick. Just bring it by and we'll put one in. Let's make sure that fixes that problem. So sure enough, she brought it over like the next day. It was maybe 2 days after she got out of Nissan. Put that in, and since then she hasn't had that problem. There was also an alarm system with a remote auto start that was wired into the car that I noticed when I got down to the brake switch. It was actually wired into the brake switch. Well, I took all that out, removed everything. She didn't use it. She didn't have the remote for it, so I removed all of it. And since then, I don't think the car's done the no acceleration bit. So I think that was just the brake light switch. But almost immediately after, she starts getting the symptoms that the transmission's getting hot and it's going into the reduced speed mode, and it's doing the symptoms now that Nissan told her that it did, which we didn't have prior to. So anyways, enough rambling on, but that's where we're at with it. So before we put a transmission in it, which we may end up having to do eventually, because it does have the symptoms of the CVT, I have the Nissan cooler kit. They wanted like $1,300 to put it in, even though it's expensive. It's almost $700. I think it was $687 from the dealer, from Midway Nissan, for the cooler kit. So it only looks like it's about an hour and a half or so per the service bulletin. So we're going to go ahead and update it. That's what Nissan wanted to do to help this symptom, which all of a sudden we have now. But anyways, when we get it pulled up here, we're going to get this cooler kit switched out so she can get her car back and get back on the road. It explains the bulletin, explains the symptoms, and it basically says to check for codes. There's my code. Page 2. Confirm has not been over full. Check coolant level, stuff like that. Then it goes into this. There's this quick flow chart here. Check CVT A count. I don't have a Nissan scan tool, and I don't see anything on my data screen, on any of my data here, that shows CVT A counts. I don't see anything like that. So I'm really not sure, and that's sometimes the difference between a generic, even though this is a snap-on scanner, the difference between a generic scanner and a Nissan scanner, I can't see these. If it says, is it greater than 1? I'm going to assume it is, because I can't see it. This is what Nissan said. It asks if that code, that's the code I have. Is that code stored? Yes. Replace the control valve assembly, which is basically the valve body inside the transmission. It says to replace the control valve assembly and install the external CVT cooler kit. It says to do both. So this transmission already experiencing other issues. It did set this code before. I did scan it one time that the light came on and it had this code. So it did do this before. Maybe it did do all this before. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to put the cooler kit in, and we're going to hope that the torque converter issue and the valve body issue is because of the fluid temperature. Okay, here we go. Here's our Nissan Rogue. Here's our Nissan CVT oil cooler kit. Nissan did these because apparently they had issues with these running hot. I've not opened it yet. This was an expensive little guy here. Basically, I think it's all the hoses and everything to do, just an external auxiliary cooler. Hoping that this does what Nissan says and we don't have any more issues with this thing running, doing goofy stuff. She needs to be able to drive it for a while. Alright, so it comes with some hoses and some clips. And for the headache, to save the headache later down the road, it's just much better to put in the Nissan stuff. I could cobble in an aftermarket cooler, but this is probably the much better way to do it. Do it the proper way. Comes with a new, I believe this is the larger cooler kit. I think what this actually is, some of the Nissan Rogues, Nissan had a heavy duty and a normal cooling application. And honestly, I believe what this is all the stuff that's missing from this car to add the heavy duty cooling components to this car. So anyway, I'm gonna get this thing, no instructions either. I guess I have to pull the TSB back up and get the instructions. Alright, so basically you gotta take the bumper cover off, the battery out, the battery tray. Some of that you probably could get around. I like having a little extra room. This here is the auxiliary cooler that comes in the kit. It comes with all the brackets, all the nuts, bolts. It's all factory Nissan components. The hose, the brackets, everything. And then this piece here, you replace the factory one with the one that has the hookup for these two hoses. And it comes with all the clamps, all the hoses, everything. So that's pretty much what it is there. Now, here's the service bulletin. It says to check this CVT-A with a C3 Plus. That's basically a factory Nissan scan tool. I don't have that. I have a snap-on scanner, and I do not see any of this data for a CVT-A count. I don't see any of that. Either way, Nissan said this is what it needed, so I'm assuming that they went through this. This 17 pages, most of it is instructions. So it says to check your CVT-A counts. Are they greater than 1? Yes. Is this code there? This code is there. This code popped up a while back and hasn't been seen since. So this code is there. So it says if that code is there, it says to replace the control valve assembly and the external CVT cooler kit. So we're going with the cooler kit right now. I believe what they're referring to is the valve body inside the transmission. And if that's the case, I would recommend just putting in a transmission at that point. So that's what that's the bulletin, and it's basically for these limiting your vehicle speed because the transmission's getting hot, and this is Nissan's answer to that problem. So yeah, just a quick video. Anybody that's got a Nissan CVT transmissions, look into that, because that might actually might be a good investment. It might help keep the transmissions going a little bit longer. So anyway, I'm gonna get that thing wrapped up. She just texted me she's on her way. She needs to get it. I'm gonna get the bumper cover on there and get it buttoned up and get it back to her. So thanks for watching.